Tuma votes yes.
The chair also votes yes. There are 5 yeses and 0 noes on Commissioner Tuma's motion to deny the petition. Thank you very much, Ms. Madsen, for your participation in this. We appreciate it. And I know, Commissioner Tuma, I'm not leaving this agenda item yet. I know you have further comments. So I just wanted to thank Ms. Madsen for bringing this to us and wish her the best with the daycare. It is a very important business that we hope continues. Commissioner Tuma.
Well, Madam Chair, as all of you all saw, I do have a motion. I want to be, just to clarify what I'm proposing. I don't even know if I'm going to offer it, but I just want to clarify and ask Excel some questions real quick around this. And so if it's okay with you, Madam Chair, I actually tried to write it out, but I didn't miss anything, but let me give it a shot if that's okay with you, Madam Chair.
Sure. Go ahead, Commissioner Tuma.
So I wanted to clear up a misunderstanding from some of the objecting landowners and the townships as to what's actually happening here with the motion I proposed. I kind of find it odd that some of the opposing landowners and the townships are objecting to my discussion of a potential notice instructing our executive secretary to do something in a public setting. As anybody who's been in front of this commission for any amount of time knows that if I wanted to, I could have gone to staff and had this very notice drafted without talking to anybody and asked the executive secretary to submit it on my own authority to take up a motion in front of the commission on any of these permits or, frankly, anything under the rules that I thought was appropriate. I could have done it in private as opposed to openly and publicly in the sunlight. There really has been no commissioner in the recent history, I don't think, that has worked harder to include local governments in participation in this very process. And I think anybody would admit that knows what I've done and the work I've done behind the scenes to make sure the permits include local participation. That should tell you something about what I'm proposing to do. I understand they may not be happy with where the notice potentially is going, but to somehow think that there's some grand conspiracy stretches the bounds of human logic to the point where even internet conspiracy theories on the pandemic seem like a pleasant distraction. There certainly will be complete vetting of our legal authority. Actually, that's what I want, a complete vetting of our legal authority. And we will act in accordance with the law. There has been no prejudgment. And we will act completely in accordance with the law that's given in front of us as we have it from the legislature today, and we will be consistent with that. And my motion today is actually very consistent with our rules and that provision of acting within the rule of law. Further, the language in paragraph 2 on satisfactory arrangements is only meant to keep other aspects of the permit operating so that XL can keep working on those other aspects unrelated to the activities on the roads in Oakland and London townships. It is simply just a way to permit simply just the way the permit is drafted. And I didn't want there to be any indication that we didn't want to keep the other work going forward as is required on the way our permit was drafted. And it really is because of the way our permit was drafted that this is causing a problem. The motion is quite clear. Road activities in Oakland and London Township may not commence until completion of the process. And that is not even disputed. It's very clear in my motion that these activities will not commence until this process is fully completed after a full vetting. Actually, thanks to the unnecessary loud objections, I noticed that the activities on the township road should actually be restricted to only overweight activities. And that, therefore, if I were to make a motion today on this, the 5th line of the 2nd paragraph should actually read, the amendment process is so long as there is no overweight activity on the affected township roads. All these are public roads, okay? And the activities on these public roads can continue without disruption in accordance with the law. Anybody can drive on them. XL Truck could drive on them so long as they're following the law and they're not overweight. I actually drove on them this weekend. They are public roads. The good folks of Oakland and London Townships will have every opportunity to make their case in front of us as to why their actions were reasonable and why we shouldn't exercise our preemptive authority, if it exists, under Minnesota law after the notice is finally drafted and served on interested parties, including the townships, and the matter is put before us for comment and, if so, possibly a hearing. This is being a pre-filed discussion today, not because I'm trying to slide anything secretly behind somebody. It's simply being filed because this is the only opportunity I have to put Mr. Harris on the spot to talk about these things in his July 10th letter. And in order to get it out there, I wanted to see what their considerations are, what they were talking about in their July letter. And the only way I can do this is to have this discussion today. This is actually shedding more sunlight on the process than we ever have with regards to notice. And it really is only meant for me to have a conversation around what they were talking about and whether there are any avenues they may consider or that I may consider on my own motion in the future, Madam Chair. That's it. I really want to have a conversation, a short conversation with Mr. Harris now, if that's okay with you, Madam Chair.
Sounds good to me, Commissioner Tuma. Please go ahead.
So, Mr. Harris, I appreciate the very difficult job, as has been evident just by the response to my inquiry about just a notice to possibly consider this concept of preemption that you raised in your July 10th letter has been floating around for some while. So I do really appreciate the difficult challenge that you have. And I really do desire very much that you work with local units of government. But that should only go so far, and we need to understand the parameters of that with regards to this, with oversight roads, restrictions. What does that mean? Does it fit within the preemption? And so as I sit here looking at a Minnesota utility, I'm kind of befuddled why you didn't visit us in advance before sending us a letter. We're your Minnesota Commission, and, you know, we have a Minnesota preemption statute, and we want to look at it, and we want to make sure, I do at least, to make sure that the full economic benefits that we found in that long, thorough, and contentious, arduous maybe even, Minnesota proceeding could still be realized for Minnesotans, for the Minnesota counties, the Minnesota townships, the Minnesota school districts that was determined there. So these turbines moving away, a lot of that economic benefit leaves us. And so, you know, I'm looking at us, and we're trying to meet the Minnesota Renewable Energy Standard here. So I'm a little bewildered why this Minnesota company, during probably meetings in Minnesota, decided that they would move turbines to Iowa. And so I would hope, and my desire is, in the end, whether I make this motion or not, it could be coming, is that you would go back and have a conversation as to whether there is something we can do here, and that be willing to at least bring a provision before us, okay, that would somehow fully lay out this argument. Again, you don't need to talk to Oakland and London Townships. If we do go forward with this, they'll have every opportunity to have a conversation with us. They'll be able to make comments. They'll be able to make motions. They'll be able to come in front of us and have a full vetting of whether their actions were appropriate and within accordance with Minnesota law. What I would like you to do is have a conversation with Freeborn County, because I think they'd probably be willing to do it, because they were willing to do it with the two other townships to act as kind of the liaison for these questions of oversized load mitigations. Is that a reasonable resolution to this? Do we have authority in this area? So in a Minnesota nice way, I'm asking you to please reconsider your action to move those turbines to Iowa and have a more thorough discussion regarding the preemption authority. I would hope you would at least give us and the good people of Minnesota that common courtesy to fully talk through whether preemption should be used here. I know you're making a business decision. I get that, but I would hope you could at least go back. Again, no commissioner has worked harder to get local units of government involved in this process, so I don't want that to be misinterpreted here. I take a little bit of umbrage to the fact that people are claiming they're speaking for the Township Association, when in fact they don't. They speak for two townships. But I also want to take those two townships' concerns considered completely. There is no predetermination here. There is only a question. Is there authority here that we're not using to make sure the full benefits of this program can move forward? Now, we can discuss all the economic developments, benefits, and all that today. I don't care to get into that. I just want to know if I have a commitment from you, if I were to do a notice like this, whether I do it today or whether I do it tomorrow when I call up Mr. Eck and ask Mr. Seaver to send out a notice asking these questions, which I believe I have every authority to do, because if we're going to have an endless parade of potential amendments and complaints around this permit, I guess I want to know the counterweighting arguments there, and I want them to be fully vetted. So I got a commitment from you to do that, or are we too far down the road, unfortunately, to use a bad metaphor?
Yeah, Madam Chair, Commissioner Tuma, I certainly appreciate the thought behind this, and we've talked a lot about this since your decision alternative came in yesterday. And I think where we're at is that essentially is the same place as before on this. I think that this is an important question on preemption. I think that this is something that obviously, if it doesn't get vetted in this docket or related to Freeborn, it's going to be something that comes up elsewhere. And that's something that we certainly considered as we made our decision here. But frankly, I think that the company is in a place where we're just too far down the path to really have an opportunity to move these turbines back to Minnesota. We certainly, if you order this decision alternative, we will participate. But I think that the move is going to happen. It's going to take advantage of the construction right now. Locking in these companies is difficult, for construction purposes. There would certainly be uncertainty, even if we got through this amendment process. I could, this decision process, I could imagine future litigation around it that would leave the question on whether we can build in those townships, continuing to be uncertain, and even through 2021. Putting risk on the PTCs like we laid out in our letter. So if you open up a comment period on this and want us to do it, we'll participate in that. But I don't know that will ultimately change our decision on where to build those turbines, just given the reality of sort of the time pressures and the construction pressures.
Well, I understand that, Mr. Harris. I appreciate that. I know the difficulty that you guys are facing with regards to the PTC, and we want to get them in place. Well, the sale is still on, and the sale will end at some point, and so I get that. I get that very much. There seems to still be an opening. I just don't want to give up on the huge economic benefit that these turbines provide Minnesota. I don't necessarily need to do a motion today, but if we're going to continue to have amendment offers after amendment offers, I want to have this fully vetted. And, I may just wait for that. I'll see what my other commissioners feel, but I'm still holding out hope. That's my struggle here. I truly want Minnesota to benefit. I'm the Minnesota Public Utilities Commissioner. And I took this job because I really do believe the great economic benefits that wind energy provides us. And that was really proven after a very contentious process here for those very turbines.
Yeah, I'll just note, Madam Chair, Commissioner Tuma, I share your concerns. And if we could have built these and had an opportunity to work with the townships, we would have. If we could have built them in Minnesota, we would have. They're not easy phone calls to have with the landowners telling them that we're going to move these turbines. And I think we gave as good of an effort as we could have to get them built there. but the townships were simply unreceptive.
Well, give me my frustration, Mr. Harris. You can explain to me, why didn't you? I mean, you mentioned in the July letter that you had considered preemption and you thought you'd be successful. Why didn't you consider making a motion in front of us? I mean, that's the part that I think is most frustrating and bewildering to me. It seems like this was in the works for a while. Why didn't you at least explore that?
Yeah, Madam Chair, Commissioner Tuma, that's a good question. And I think the issue that we saw was that, we could have brought a lawsuit against the townships and raised the preemption question there. But, Commissioner Tuma, that process was not going to be fast. And when we were making this decision, when we were considering our alternatives, we were looking at a PTC cliff at the end of 2020. And so we needed to get a decision made, develop these alternatives before then. And I think even if we had brought a motion in front of you, we still would have likely faced that litigation and that long, drawn-out process following a decision from the commission.
And I guess that's, and maybe that's what we have to be very careful in our permit language as we look at it. Had the permit language not kind of put an impediment in front of you, if there was an effective mechanism for you to come for us, and I don't want to make it easy. That's the point. I don't want to make it easy for you just to, the township's not dealing with us, let's just run to the commission. But I think there's some elements here that, I don't know that for a fact, because I would have to wait. I'm not prejudging it, but there's just, based on what you filed, there seems to be indications that there may be a justification for us to have acted in this situation. And the fact that our permit required you, before you could go do anything, that was what the second paragraph in my motion is about. You can't do anything until you have an arrangement. So if you were to sue, you have a poor district court judge who's looking at you going, well, aren't you supposed to work it out? That's what the permit says, and you haven't. It does put you in a difficult spot. And so, and that was because the way our permit was drafted. I mean, that's just no way around it. Had our permit been drafted to give you a chance to create some mitigation methods or process that puts you into the point of saying, yes, we could mitigate it, which is what the final conclusion, if this were to go all the way to the end, I would see a decision that we would have a liaison or the county acting in that role of saying, yes, these overweight problems are going to be mitigated, Judge. It's taken care of. And it's a public road. And last time I checked, I don't think London and Oakland Township has a police force. And so you could go across those public roads unless they brought you to court. And that's what you're saying. That still could have happened in this situation. They still could have gone to court, and there could have still been some uncertainty that was created, even if we were to go to the full end of where my notice would bring us, if we were to make that determination, which we have not made.
Yeah. Madam Chair, Commissioner Tuma, I agree with that. And like I said to begin with, I don't think that this is an issue that's going to go away, whether it's in this docket or another. I think this is something that we're going to have to confront in, at the very least, future permitting issues.
Well, Madam Chair, I haven't made a motion yet. I guess if any of my other commissioners have something to say, I would cherish their insight or thoughts on this. But as you can tell, I'm frustrated. We're losing a significant amount of economic benefit to Minnesota because of this, and I really do want to explore every avenue and think through this. Maybe this isn't the place to have it. Maybe it is. So I'll leave others to make comments.
Commissioner Tuma, I appreciate that. I noticed, or I looked up in the Litchfield Direct testimony on the financial impacts of the project, that the project will result in an annual tax payment of approximately $9,400 per turbine per year, or up to almost $400,000 for all 42 turbines planned. And as participants know, by Minnesota law, this would be allocated 80% to the county and 20% to the host township. So, Mr. Harris, I'm frustrated too, and I understand the company's decision. What can you say about, so this is moving, is it 17 or 19 of the 42 turbines? What can you tell us about the remaining turbines? Is the company committed to moving forward with construction on the remaining turbines in Minnesota, or do we need to worry about that?
Yeah, Madam Chair, we are committed to moving forward with those remaining turbines. There, of course, could be something that comes up with a site that would require them to be moved to an alternate location, just like any project. But our plan is to build all the remaining turbines from the site permit in Minnesota.
And Mr. Harris, I appreciated your exchange with Commissioner Tuma, but do you, from the company's perspective, is there anything that the commission is doing or not doing that weighed into the company's decision to move the turbines to Iowa? I want you to be as explicit as you can, because I think it's important for us as the commission. As Commissioner Tuma said, we're the Minnesota Public Utilities Commission. We want these projects developed in Minnesota. Are we doing anything that could be improved on so that this doesn't happen in the future, in your estimation?
Yeah, Madam Chair, that's a good question, and I don't know that I have fully thought that through. But the language of the site permits, as Commissioner Tuma noted, requires us to work with local entities of government to obtain the necessary permits. I think, as Commissioner Tuma thinks, that that's important. But it also is, potentially a roadblock to the preemptive power of the site permit. I think that that's something that we can think about. I think that that's something that may ultimately be subject to litigation to see, what other authorities think about. But I think that's kind of where the rub is with respect to the site permit. Ultimately, this is also just an issue of the ordinances that the townships themselves passed, and not so much one of the permits.
And Mr. Harris, in Iowa, I presume then these turbines, the 19 turbines or 17 turbines, are going into townships as well, and the difference there is the townships want them and so are going to work with the company to expedite the construction to get it in before the end of the calendar year so it can meet the production tax credit benefits?
Yeah, Madam Chair, that's right. I mean, they've been receptive from a county level and I believe a landowner and township level, and we'll be able to construct them sort of at the same time as the rest of the project, both in Minnesota and Iowa.
And did the company, did you consider moving these turbines to within the permitted area but in different locations outside of the two, let's just call them non-participating townships?
Madam Chair, I don't know exactly what all we considered. There's a difference between Iowa and Minnesota in that in Iowa, the turbines are sited at a county level and approved at a county level, which is a quicker process than having to come back for another amendment to relocate the turbines, which would have taken quite some time.
In front of the commission?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Yeah. Commissioner Sullivan.
I have a question for Mr. Harris. I'm curious, and I didn't see this in the record. I did appreciate that Commissioner Sieben talked about the revenue to the counties that will be lost out. I'm wondering if Excel can speak to, or if if there are any Minnesota businesses in the supply chain that won't be utilized because building these 17 turbines in Iowa. So not just the county and the municipal impacts, but are there Minnesota jobs that are going to be lost out as well?
Yeah, Madam Chair, Commissioner Sullivan, I don't know for sure, and maybe Matt Langen can verify, but I believe that it's still planned to be the same contractor and same workers for the project, just in a different location.
Okay.
Is there any more discussion, Commissioner Sullivan, or questions?
Nope, that's it.
Commissioner Tuma.
I'd be curious if Mr. Langen has a response to that, because I think Mr. Harris left it a little vague. So I'd just be sure to confirm, in fact, what's going on as far as workers.
Mr. Langen.
Madam Chair, Commissioner Tuma, thank you. Yes, Wanzek Construction is the construction contractor, and we would be utilizing the same crews there, but just as Mr. Harris indicated, in a different location.
Okay.
Yeah, and Madam Chair, to your point about the economic development, I know for a fact Freeborn County was going to use the money generated from this particular project to be the fiscal backup for a COVID business recovery program they had in their county, and so now it's going to be impaired because of the loss of these turbines. So that's a sad situation for Freeborn County, and it's sad for Minnesota, I think.
I would.
Commissioner Sullivan, sorry.
No, sorry. I would also add there's just the businesses that won't be utilized because people won't be building the turbines in Freeborn County, and that's very significant. So just worth mentioning.
I don't think we have a motion on the table, Commissioner Tuma.
No, I think I accomplished what I wanted, Madam Chair. I may have a request at some point down the road to have this discussed. I'm going to discuss it with our staff, obviously, and think through this. But I do have the right to make a notice and ask for comment, and I do have a right to make a motion somewhere down the line to amend this permit. And I'm going to reserve that right. I don't have to come in front of the commission like I did today to do that. And for those people that insinuated somehow I was being nefarious for doing that, I am somewhat insulted. And so, Madam Chair, I'm going to reserve that right, but at this stage, I don't see a need to make a motion.
Thank you, Commissioner Tuma. You're a commissioner who's always looking out for the rights of local landowners, local units of government, counties and townships to participate in our process. So I share your frustration over some of those comments. So with that, we will move on to, let's see, it's 10:36. We will take a break now until, is 10:45 enough time, commissioners, before we take up agenda item number 2? Okay.
Sounds good.
The commission will stand in recess then until 10:45 a.m. Thank you to all the participants for item number 1.
Thank you.